Alright, so this chapter was just so good. I'm really liking the slow burn we're getting here with Megumi versus Reggie, and especially after what we saw go down with Yuji versus Higurama, because it honestly feels like we're going to see someone die in this fight, and I'm not sure how long it'll actually take for that to happen, but considering what we saw happen in chapter 168 where we saw Megumi take out Chizuri for 5 points, it's like we're looking at a whole new evolution to his character with this chapter. And for those that follow me here on the channel, I know I haven't talked about Jujutsu Kaisen since like chapter 160, so now that I'm finally caught up and the holidays are over, it's interesting just to see how completely different Yuji and Megumi are in comparison to who they were in like the Shibuya incident, for example. And I know this chapter was a little overwhelming, so let's just get into the chapter. There's a lot to talk about here. So picking up from the last chapter, we're seeing Megumi's Chimera Shadow Garden, but right when he summons this, we see Reggie use his simple domain Hollow Whisker Basket. And we're getting from the narration here that by using this, Reggie would have naturally negated the one-shot hit that comes with the domain expansion. And at this point so far, I'm just gonna assume Megumi already knows the limits of everything he can and can't do in his Shadow Garden, but because Reggie's simple domain is still in effect, you can also notice how careful Megumi is to attacking him. Like when his toads are able to isolate him, and of course because Reggie is assuming his domain is complete, Megumi is able to catch him off guard since he wasn't expecting the toads could touch him. And the reason for this is simply because it turns out Megumi's domain is actually incomplete, so even though it can't perform the one-shot technique like every other complete domain expansion, he's still able to make an enclosure in the gym regardless, and then Megumi just starts dogging on him, essentially forming multiple shadows at once and coming from any and all angles. So even though the domain is incomplete, he's still able to use his shadows effectively. And it should also be said that, it's been implied since the beginning of the series that Megumi's shown to have high potential. This could also explain why Sukuna's so curious about him, and it makes sense given how flexible he is with using the 10 shadows technique. And who knows what it really could be like if he's actually able to control the domain, right? I mean, I would guess depending on how well he could control it, then maybe he'd even be able to control Mahoraga. And I'm probably wrong, but it seems like we're so far seeing Megumi on a slow burn, seeing his evolution, especially in this fight where it seems like he's going for the kill here against Reggie, so he's not holding back any punches. And while Megumi is just bashing on him, Reggie still hasn't put it together. He says to himself that the toads were only able to isolate him because they took form before he did his domain expansion. And then when he remembers Max Elephant, he tries to counter the shadows, this time using a receipt, and by summoning 3 cars, we're seeing the drawback of Megumi's domain, forcing him to carry this insane weight. So because it actually looks like it's working, he then uses his cursed energy to control his footing on the ground here and pressure Megumi, but then Megumi tells him, "You've missed something. An incomplete domain is still a domain. There's a shadow above you too." And then right from above, he drops Max Elephant on him. So they're both now having to endure this, crushing weight on them. And again, like I mentioned earlier, ever since chapter 168, you can clearly see that Megumi is taking a really different turn here. And if you look at Yuji, it's like a full 180 of what we saw happen during his fight versus Higurama. Because while Yuji is very, conservative, right, in the way he decides to fight, especially when it comes to how he handles Sukuna, for example, you can almost say the complete opposite of Megumi. It's like we're watching him slowly turn more and more like Toji. And I think this is a transition that, has been heavily implied for a while now. You can even see how it's affected his fighting style, specifically in how he uses his Shikigami here. And this is one of the reasons why I think, unlike Yuji versus Higurama, we could actually be seeing someone die here. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if it's Reggie, since we've already seen Megumi mention that he isn't against gaining points in the culling game. But because it's not entirely clear what Reggie is really capable of, I don't want to say with like 100% that he loses here, right? I mean, there seems to be some information he knows about the current status of the culling game, so I think if he would survive, we can maybe see him as a recurring character. This could actually explain why we didn't see Higurama die also. But if it doesn't go this route, then maybe Megumi just straight up kills Reggie in the next chapter. I think that would give a lot of value to his position in the game, since he would gain more points anyway. And who knows, maybe this is all just building up towards a confrontation with Itadori. There's just so many ways this can go. But that's gonna be the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know the last time I talked about Jujutsu Kaisen was like almost 10 chapters ago, but no worries, I'm officially back on it, back to the regular chapter reviews, and I have to say I'm really enjoying the start to this arc so far. And more than anything, I really want to know what Kenjaku has been doing. Hopefully there's actually something important Reggie knows, since it seems like he knows a lot more than he's letting on. I just have so many thoughts after these last 10 chapters, but that's going to be the end of the video, guys. If you liked what I had to say, then please leave a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. Let me know what you agreed or disagreed with in the comments, and if you're interested in more Jujutsu Kaisen content, then make sure you subscribe. I'll be doing more here on the channel for sure. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.